Hi, Dixon Live.
Hi, Pauline.
Okay, let's get
Hello.
started.
Yeah, Dixon, I'm here.
Let's get the show rolling.
Hi, Mahin.
Hi, Pushpa.
The teenage years can be full of excitement, opportunities, and newfound freedoms. Yet they can also be times fraught with worry about exams, relationships, and keeping up with peers and the latest trends. For some, this burden can become so overwhelming they take their own lives. Suicide is never the answer. There's always hope. If you're a school principal, put a plan in place for helping students and teachers to stay mentally healthy. Organise training for staff on what signs to look out for and how to have sensitive and compassionate conversations. Create a safe school environment where students and staff know they can seek help and talk to someone if they need to. A few words can make a world of difference.
President Maha.
Being at work can be good for mental health, but the increasing pressures at work can be stressful. A difficult work environment or ongoing work-related stresses can worsen the mental health of employees. In some circumstances, they may take their own lives. But suicide is never the answer. There is always hope. Employers and managers have an important role to play in looking out for the mental health of their staff. They can help create a culture where people feel safe to talk about their mental health and to seek help. Employers can help their staff to feel supported with their mental health, which is good for staff and good for employers. A few words can make a world of difference. In an emergency call-out, a person's real situation may not always be obvious. Emergency workers are often the first on the scene to a mental health crisis or suicide attempt. They have a pivotal role to play in what happens from there on. The person they are called out to help will be in need of support, empathy, and kindness. Always treat situations like these as serious. Encourage the person in difficulty to talk. Be the bridge to follow-up care. Emergency workers should also look out for each other, because sometimes they need help too. A few words can make a world of difference.
People go to see doctors and nurses for many different reasons, but sometimes the real reason is far more serious than what they say they're there for. Sadly, the stigma of mental health and suicide can get in the way of people asking for help. Many people put on a brave face, even if their mood is very low. A healthcare worker is in a unique position to recognise the signs of someone who is struggling with their mental health or who is thinking about suicide. They can ask gentle yet direct questions. They can take the time to listen, and they can show empathy, offer ongoing support and follow-up. A few words can make a world of difference.
Pass to you, MC.
Thank you. Good afternoon, good evening, and good morning, depending on which location you are dialing in from. And welcome to our third Thursday talk organized by Rotary District 3300, along with Rotary Club Klang Valley, and along with the Action Group on Mental Health Initiatives. Today, we have a very, very meaningful, purposeful topic on building and sustaining resilience. An amazing group of speakers who are keen to share about what is happening from their perspective, why some people are more resilient than others, and how do you prepare yourself to make sure you're more resilient as part of the mental health aspects. All right. So I'm not going to steal the thunder from our moderator. But before that, I have something interesting to tell you. Let me take this opportunity to, first of all, thank everyone who's joining this session. I think lots of people are here. We want to make sure that this session is very meaningful to you. You can take away a lot of learnings from today's session on how it will impact you, your friends, your family, and anyone else that you come across, and how this would play an important role from Rotary's aspect of sharing sustaining resilience as part of this journey. So with that, let me take this opportunity to introduce PDG Dr. Mano. PDG Dr. Mano is the chairman of Past District Governors Council. He's also the advisor to the District Action Council Group to share his views. Welcome, PDG Dr. Mano.
Thank you, Anthony. Very good evening to District Governor Dato' Bindi Rajashekharan. I'm not sure if you are somewhere listening to us. Chairman of the District Action Group on Mental Health Initiatives, Dr. Raj Kumar. President of Rotary Club of Klang Valley, Mr. Mohan Ramakrishnan. Distinguished guests and my fellow Rotarians. I thank the organizers for giving me the opportunity today to say a few words on Rotary's initiatives. The District Action Group on Mental Initiatives, or DAGMHI, as it is also called, was formed in August 2020. It comprises of Rotarians, Rotaractors, and it is represented by 20 clubs from around Malaysia in District 3300. DAGMHI has initiated the formation of National Coalition for Mental Wellbeing. The coalition is a platform which consists of Rotarians, NGOs, consulting agencies, institutions, world organizations like WHO and UNICEF, and strategic partners like the Ministry of Health, Ministry of Human Resources, Ministry of Education, and Women, Family and Community Development. Our Rotary leader in District 3300, Dato' Bindi Rajashekharan, was instrumental in the formation of both the District Action Group as well as the National Coalition for Mental Wellbeing. There are many areas of focus that the DAG and the NCMW are working at one, and at present, many milestones have been achieved. Notably, there are two areas which recently brought about much media attention. One is the decriminalization of attempted suicides. We had press conferences, meetings with AG Chambers, Malaysian Crime Prevention Foundation, interviews on Astro, and all these have gathered momentum, and finally our voice are heard. Let's hope that this will become a reality in the near future. And secondly, on the Youth and Adolescents Focus Group of NCMW, Mind Matters Network began their first flagship event, Cahaya Youth Symposium, Symbol of Hope. It was a 2-day engaging symposium where it was beyond talks, hands-on skills dealing with delicate situations was held on 10th and 11th September 2021. The third Thursday Talks, an initiative of the District Action Group, is playing an important role in disseminating information and knowledge on mental health to Rotarians, Rotaractors, Interactors, and as well as the members of the public. With that, my guests, we will now listen to the interesting speakers that have been lined up this evening by our organizers. With that, I'll say thank you. Enjoy the evening.
Thank you, PDG Dr. Mano, for sharing with us your perspective, valuable ones. Now I understand why you don't need any introduction. You gave the full perspective already for setting the stage for us. Thank you. Right now we are, by the way, I must introduce myself. My name is Anthony Raja, part of Rotary Club Klang Valley, Club Admin Director. I take this opportunity now to invite our moderator for the session, who will then introduce the speakers and the topic and the areas from there. He's none other than past President Arjun Saulani. He's our on-sec of Rotary Club Klang Valley as well. So may I invite PP Arjun to take us through the moderation session.
Thank you, Rotarian Anthony. My dear friends, as we all know, no one escapes a mental health issue at any one point in their lives. Everyone faces an issue on mental health, related to mental health, at one point or another. Many are able to bounce back and revert to healthy functioning over time, as well as gain experiences and positive, healthy levels of psychological and physical functioning. But unfortunately, some have much more difficult times in overcoming these challenges. One may experience this not once, not twice, but at many different points in their lives. And there is no easy way out. But one thing for sure is that there is a way out. One just has to be patient. Our goal in today's Thursday talk are twofold. One is to gain an understanding of how anyone can overcome these challenges. And two, to identify factors that contribute to sustaining resilience. We hope to impress upon the participants that there surely is hope, even when your mind tells you there isn't. There is the little bit of devil workshop in our minds which always pulls us back, but don't let it take over you. Don't for a moment be deceived by that little devil in your mind that keeps telling you to give up. As you would have seen in the video earlier, don't let that little devil tell you to give up, because we can fix it. With a little bit of resilience, we can do it. Now, our three speakers, I would say our three eminent speakers, will endeavor to show us the way towards building and sustaining resilience so that mental health issues can be managed effectively in our everyday life. Without taking much of your time on that, speaking on the subject, I would be very happy to introduce our first speaker, Dr. Shailaja Subramaniam. Dr. Shailaja Subramaniam holds a PhD and LMFT, i.e., she is also a licensed marriage and family therapist. She is an assistant professor in the Department of Human Development and Family Studies at Michigan State University. She supervises students in her clinical work. Her teaching and research interests are primarily focused on immigration, aging, and health, in addition to implementing culturally sensitive evidence-based interventions. She has also examined resilience in families impacted by trauma, grief, and loss. Dr. Shailaja, I now hand over the stage to you. I look forward to hearing your presentation.
Hello, everyone. A very good evening to all. Thank you for the warm introduction, Arjun. I'm excited to be here with all of you, and I want to thank Rotary District Action Group on Mental Health Initiatives for organizing this series of mental health talks, which I'm sure have been really informative to everyone watching and listening. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak on this topic of resilience. I've been able to meet some incredibly amazing and resilient individuals through my work in this area. And you'll be hearing from two such individuals Eka and Sangeeta shortly as well. Next slide, please. So I will start by looking at what resilience is exactly, and then talk to you a little bit about the concept of ecosystemic stress, and also the importance of understanding stress reactions before moving on to strategies to build and sustain resilience, with some guidelines for support networks as well. Next slide, please. So what is resilience? Well, resilience occurs in the context of adversity, and it refers to the ability of individuals who are exposed to highly disruptive events to maintain relatively stable, healthy levels of psychological and physical functioning. And resilient individuals may experience a temporary disruption in normal functioning. For example, they may feel sadness, despair, sleeplessness that might last for several weeks, but they are able to adapt, adjust, and move forward, as well as gain generative experiences. So in a nutshell, resilience is typically defined as the capacity to recover from difficult life events. But resilient does not mean that you have to keep a stiff upper lip and show these rugged characteristics of being tough as nails, or needing to have a nothing can keep me down attitude, or you somehow have this magical ability to bounce back from adversities like nothing ever happened. On the contrary, people who have suffered major adversity or trauma in their lives commonly experience emotional pain and stress. However, research has found that some individuals who are challenged by adversity do emerge stronger, with capacities that they may not have developed otherwise. And as a result, some resilience researchers have gone so far as to suggest that resilience does not occur in spite of adversity, but because of it. Next slide, please. So as you know, we are all embedded within ecosystems of living organisms sharing an environment. The ecosystemic perspective emphasizes how we are all interrelated and interdependent. And as individuals, we are embedded within social systems. For example, our families, communities, organizations, societies, and countries. And events can impact not only the individual, but reverberate within communities and societies. And these can be in the form of historical events. For example, natural or man-made disasters, wars, diseases, like the current pandemic, which has impacted all our lives. Economic events, like major recessions or job losses and wealth disparities. Developmental issues within individuals and families. And here I'm referring to personal losses or tragedies. Hereditary factors in families, which can cause severe, maybe disabilities or mental and physical health issues. And then cultural issues involving ethnicity and race, or religion and spirituality. And of course, global issues, and here I'm referring to socio-political changes and trends. Next slide, please. So it is really important to understand our stress reactions. Stress is any type of change that causes physical, emotional, or psychological strain. And while a little bit of stress is actually beneficial, because research has shown that the right amount of stress is actually important to motivate us, too much stress can wear you down and make you sick. And here we are talking about reactions like feeling overwhelmed, having anxiety and or depression, feeling despair or sadness or a sense of low self-worth, an inability to focus on anything, or physiological reactions like headaches, stomach aches, insomnia, and so on. So when we are going through a stressful period in our lives, our ability to cope depends on these factors. Firstly, understanding what the kind of stress we have. So what is the source of the stress? Where is it coming from? Is it a specific event or a pileup of events and experiences? Secondly, what is the meaning attributed to the stress? How are you perceiving it? And this can vary on a continuum between perceiving stressful experiences as challenges to be met and overcome, or something that has the potential to maybe devastate or destroy you. Thirdly, recognizing that you may need help in terms of accessing resources and having a willingness to look out for them. And finally, being able to reframe the stress by focusing on what is still going okay in your life instead of magnifying or catastrophizing everything. For example, thinking that if you fail one exam, then you're not intelligent and you'll never be successful in life. Or if your partner leaves you, you will never find anyone and you will never be happy again. And so how you choose to respond and act in these situations can determine whether you succumb to or surmount adverse situations. Next slide, please. So when we talk about strategies to build and sustain resilience, it's a combination of personal characteristics and the environmental situation. And context matters. There's no one size fits all. Every individual is unique. And although problems may seem similar, how each individual perceives and experiences the problems will not be similar. And resilience is based on a set of skills that can be learned. Although there are certain factors that do make some individuals more resilient than others, resilience isn't necessarily a personality trait that only some people have. There's convincing evidence now that individuals can learn or acquire resilient qualities, all of which makes resilience pretty ordinary and nothing extraordinary at all. So in promoting resilience, it involves these three dimensions: personal factors, families, and support networks. Next slide, please. So looking at personal factors, this is based on interviews with large numbers of highly resilient individuals who have experienced a great deal of adversity and come through it successfully. And here are some of the characteristics that they share. For one, having a positive but realistic outlook. The most resilient among us are people who generally don't dwell on the negatives, but instead look for opportunities that might exist even in the darkest of times. And one way is to avoid, as I mentioned, catastrophic thinking, like imagining the worst case scenarios all the time. While it is good to be prepared, it is rare that the worst case scenarios come true. During the COVID quarantine, for example, a resilient person might decide it is a good time to start maybe a meditation practice, take an online course, or start an online business. As they say, when life presents you with lemons, make lemonade. Self-care. If you're weathering a storm in life or providing support to people around you who may be going through a difficult time, you need to be okay yourself. In other words, we need to make sure we have our own oxygen masks on first before we can help someone else put theirs on, as we are frequently reminded to do when we are on a flight. Because this helps to get your mind and body ready to deal with situations that may require resilience. And here I'm talking about common sense measures like paying attention to your physical health, maybe making exercise a priority, following a healthy diet, having good sleep practices, making time for the simple pleasures of life, or maybe starting to practice some relaxation techniques. And a good thing to also do is simplifying your routines and setting limits to protect your time. It's best to resist to take on too many activities or overcommitting yourself. So don't be afraid to say no. Having a moral compass. Highly resilient people have a solid sense of what they consider to be right and wrong, and it tends to guide their decisions. They are able to draw solid boundaries and stick to them. And good personal relationships. Resilient individuals work hard to maintain connections with family and friends, because it is these connections that someday will be there for them in their hour of need. And they're also altruistic. They have a concern for others and a degree of selflessness. They are often dedicated to causes that they find meaningful. They're involved in volunteering, in organizations or community enterprises that provide support to others, like maybe food banks or environmental cleanup, or medical camps, or even mentoring or teaching. And resilient individuals also have this sense of meaning or purpose in life, which gives them courage and strength. I'm sure many of you would have heard of Viktor Frankl, who was a Holocaust survivor. And he was able to survive the horrors and atrocities of the concentration camp because he never lost his sense of hope. And he found that those who made it through with their sanity intact were those who looked out for others, who comforted and helped others. Frankl's message was, even in the most absurd, painful, and dispiriting of circumstances, life can be given meaning, and so too can suffering. Next is acceptance. Many resilient people learn to carefully accept what they can't change about a situation, and then ask themselves what they can actually change. Conversely, complaining and worrying endlessly about not being able to change things has the opposite effect. Resisting what is inevitable just lessens your ability to cope. And it brings to mind this proverb, this too shall pass. So try to see your situation as being temporary, no matter how difficult. Nothing in life ever stays the same, because life tends to ebb and flow in ways that are impossible to predict. And this view can help you gain perspective and maybe maintain momentum to work through difficult circumstances. And one way is to stay focused in the here and now, or in the present moment, and not give in to ruminations about the past or the future, which none of us can change or control. And religious or spiritual practices. Many studies have highlighted how having faith and belief in something greater than themselves have helped people be resilient. This is often found through religious practices or spiritual practices, and people find comfort and solace in prayers and religious talks or spiritual books, all of which enhances resilience. And they're connected to the sense of inner wisdom as well. Good networks. Resilient individuals don't hesitate reaching out for help or information. And having access to these networks of support have been instrumental in helping individuals through addictions, suicidal thoughts, abuse, financial problems, and so on. Next slide, please. And families are crucial in building and nourishing resilience in their children. And they can do this by tapping into key family processes, like ensuring warmth and stability in the parent-child relationship. Because parents serve as the very first secure base for their children. Just knowing that parents are accessible, responsive, and supportive makes it easier for their children to go out and explore the world, because they can rest assured that their parents have their backs. And ensuring your interaction with your children are positive, consistent, and protective. And here I'm referring to no name calling, verbal abuse, shaming them, or undermining their abilities. And giving unwavering support. I can't tell you the number of interviews that I've been involved in or I've read about where resilient individuals have all remarked on the crucial influence of significant relationships in their lives, whether it's their family or friends, spouses or partners, or mentors such as coaches or teachers who supported their efforts, who believed in them, who believed in their potential, and kept encouraging them not to give up and to make the most of their lives. And teaching your children problem-solving skills. Parents have life experience, children don't. And teaching these skills will help them. And too much protection or mollycoddling is not going to do them any favors. It's more important to help your children be life smart rather than just book smart. It's a good idea to let them do things for themselves, which are of course age appropriate. And if they do mess up or don't succeed, keep encouraging them. And it's also important to keep family times and routines, even in a crisis, because it does provide stability and some level of predictability. And of course, things like instilling cultural awareness and respect for others and the environment, providing spiritual and or moral guidance, and when required, being able to reach out and provide resources, whether it's through the community or other organizations. It teaches children that there is no shame in having problems and difficulties. And when you do, you should reach out for help. Next slide, please. And finally, some guidelines for support networks. Although as human beings, we have internal resources to help us thrive in the most difficult of situations, but those internal resources are not endless or infinite. And it's seldom of much use unless we also have access to some external resources as well. Now, we all know the age-old fairy tale of Cinderella. Now, what would have been Cinderella's fate had the fairy godmother not come along? So in the real world, supportive relationships and having accessible resources can make a huge difference. Individuals who are able to access and harness some resources do much better than individuals without resources, regardless of their personal qualities. So one of the main things that family and friends can do is to learn to listen with empathy and compassion and not just give sympathy. And here we are talking about being totally present when someone is talking to you about their concerns and problems. And try not to be distracted by your devices or other interruptions. Try to imagine things from their perspective. And don't be in a hurry to solve their problems, because that may not be what they need in the moment. Sometimes we just want someone to listen to us, a shoulder to cry on, so to speak, not necessarily someone to solve all our problems. And don't blame them or shame them, even when they're talking to you about their problems and needs, although they may have contributed to their situation or been responsible for it, because you are not there as their judge or jury or their executioner. The last thing anyone wants to hear when they're in the middle of a crisis is, "I told you so." Instead, express genuine concern find words of support and comfort, and also find ways that you can support practically. Maybe you can create a GoFundMe page or find organizations or government or community resources that may be able to give some short-term help until more permanent solutions can be found. And make sure they have their immediate needs met, like food and shelter, safety, medical help, and childcare. And where other service providers are concerned, and here I'm referring to government or community agencies or resources provided by non-for-profit organizations, the programs and services should be widely accessible and tailored to the needs of the population that they serve. It's the quality of services received that matters most. And it's so important to provide the right service from the right people in the right way at the right time. There's so much evidence now that young people in particular do much better when they receive a combination of services delivered with consistency in culturally relevant ways at a time and place valued by them. So an essential first step in this process is taking a more collaborative approach in providing services. And my next slide, moving on to my next slide. These are just some references, and going on to my final slide. Well, I hope this information here has been helpful. I'm sure you will find that the inspiring accounts from Eka and Sangeeta's amazing journey of resilience will illustrate many of the aspects that I've spoken to you about today. I'm happy to take any questions you might have. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Shaila. I saw a couple of questions creeping in just now, but we will hold off the questions for now until we sit with the rest of the panel as well towards the end of the session. It gives me great pleasure now to invite our next speaker, Eka Shireen. Now, Eka Shireen is the founder of Hope Valley. Hope Valley is an outpatient treatment center located in Petaling Jaya, Selangor. Eka is a certified recovery specialist, coach, and has completed her executive master's in addiction science from Asia Metropolitan University. She has trained extensively through various institutions, enhancing her skills to best help individuals afflicted with addiction. Now, knowing the harms of addiction firsthand, Eka is determined to raise awareness of addiction and be an advocate for those who are afflicted with this disease. Through her extensive trainings and real-world experiences from being the afflicted to now helping those afflicted by addiction, she is able to contribute towards innovative recovery initiatives within this country. Eka, the floor is all yours, Eka.
Thank you, Arjun, for the introduction. Listen, do you mind putting on the video, please?
Let me speak on addiction from the voice of an addict, from someone who's battled to get where they're at on a chance knowing some never have it. Let me speak for the victims, for the families, the lives that are shattered, for the ones that you say had a choice that they made in their life so their lives never mattered. This one's for Micah, Michelle, then it's Adam. Ryan almost dying in my car in Lantana as I'm driving. I'm trying to revive him. I'm watching his lights dim. You think that it's mind over matter? It doesn't matter. Disease or a choice. Cheese and exploiting, squeezing the points. And the person that needs at that teetering point going deeper when all they really need is a voice. You can do this. When you're gone and your life is over, what will they say? Will
they
say when you're gone, 'cause you won't get sober? What will they say? What will they say?
Hi, everyone. Yeah, thank you, Rotary Club Clam Valley, for this opportunity to share my experience, strength, and hope. The video you just watched is a 1-minute version of what it was like, what happened, and what it is like now. How it all started. I come from a good family background. I live in a beautiful home in Tamanton, had good education, loving parents. At the age of 11, my father passed away. Ever since then, I've always felt this void in my soul. And when I was 15, I started smoking. At the age of 16, I started drinking and smoking marijuana. And from there on, my addiction just escalated from marijuana to ecstasy. And towards the end, it was full blast methamphetamine. I was smoking methamphetamine every single day. How bad was it? If I could describe my addiction in one word, I would say it was like hell. It was not living. I was using every day, and my life really depended on it from the moment I wake up to the point I go to bed. And as I progressed into my addiction, I realized that addiction was just taking everything away from me, my health, my sanity, my life, my family, my friends, my job, everything. The longest I've not slept will be 5 days in a row. If I had 200 ringgit in the wallet, 150 will go to substances. The other 40 probably will go to nicotine, cigarettes, and 10 ringgit I would consider about eating. Eating was always the last on my list. And the only reason I would eat was so that my next high would taste good. I did not shower. I did not take care of myself. I could barely hold my job. And I was jumping from one relationship to another. At one point, I believed that getting married or having a child would solve my problem. It did not solve my problem. So I was jumping from one marriage to another. In the process, I did hurt all my loved ones. I disappointed them. When I was young, they used to have this ad where they share that, Dada Sampah Masyarakat. So growing up, I always believed that I was Sampah Masyarakat, I was a scum of the earth, and therefore I never seek help. I never seek help because I really thought I was worthless. And then I was taught that addiction is a disease. It's not a choice. I'm not a bad person. I'm just a sick person who needs to get well. I'm so, so grateful that my therapist introduced me to the 12-step fellowship. I didn't get recovery immediately. I was in and out of the 12-step fellowship for 6 to 7 years. And in the end, I was just broken. I was just broken. The substance didn't do it for me anymore. And I remember praying to God one day. I don't know how was that prayer different. And my head was literally on the ground and I was praying to God. I'm like, God, 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 please. There's got to be another way out. And I don't know why was that particular prayer different, but I know at that point something was just lifted. And it was just amazing. And I knew at that point I was going to do whatever it takes to get recovery. So I checked myself into rehab. I needed to be removed from my toxic environment. And it was one of the greatest gifts I had given myself. And I really had fun in rehab. I had to be taught. It was like me being a baby and learning how to walk again. I had to be taught to eat on time, to take shower, to eat my medicine on time, to exercise, and all the basic life stuff that I was not doing, during my active addiction. After coming out, I found a passion in this field. It just brings me so much joy watching people growing and getting recovery. And I decided, hey, why not do this for a living? Why not help others, right? So I got my credentials and I started Hope Valley. And one of the things that I've learned is that recovery is not for people who need it. Recovery is not for people who want it. recoveries for people who works it. I've got to do the work. It's not that I pray to God or I go rehab and then come out, I'm like, oh, all fixed. No, it doesn't work that they are like that. I have to continue do the work. So some of the things that I do to maintain my recovery will be, number one will be prayers. I stay in conscious contact with my higher power. I pray. Meditation is another one of my top favorite on the list, because this head is so noisy. Like from the time you wake up, it's like the hamsters on the wheel. It just goes nonstop. So meditation just brings me to the moment, it grounds me, and it quietens that chatter in the mind. Another thing will be writing a gratitude list. I don't know about you guys, like I can focus on that one thing I don't have and magnify, like Doctor said earlier, just magnify it and make it like it's the biggest problem in the world. But if I actually sit down and write my gratitude list, I have hundreds of stuff that I'm grateful for, 100 things that I'm blessed with. And another stuff on my another thing on my list will be the 12 steps. I'm a member of the 12-step fellowship, Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, Sex Love Addicts Anonymous. I belong to this support group, which is amazing. They're like my family today, and they've given me these tools. They've given me the steps to live a life that's beyond my wildest dreams, a new way of living, and teaches me stuff like to be kind, to be loving, to not cause harm, to make amends when I hurt others. And what else is on the list? Hobbies will be another great thing. Self-care. Some of my top lines will include dancing. I do love dancing, and cooking. So, like I said before, if I don't do this stuff, I call this my lifelong prescription. Like I have to do this for the rest of my life. On the days that I start to become complacent and I cut down on my tools and I don't work, I don't pray, I don't meditate. I can feel it coming back. Like this monkey on my back is never gonna leave me, because I have a disease. It is inside me. It will never leave, and I have to continue doing the work. I see a lot of people coming out from rehab, and the sad truth is that many don't make it. We're looking at only 10 to 20% who makes it. And some of the reasons, one of the main reasons why they don't make it, because they don't come out and they don't continue with their program. They don't continue using the tools that were taught to them. And it's sad. I have friends, who has one relapse and he's gone. I had a friend when I was in rehab, he had one slip and he died. He was only 26 years old. And people die. It is a disease, and your future, if I don't stop my using, my future will be either jail, institution, or death. And we're talking about early death. So I guess that's all I want to share for today. I am so grateful. Recovery is so worth it. Like I say, it is work. Life challenges will still happen. In my first year of when I was 1 year, 3 months, my mom passed away. I've lost friends to addiction. I've almost lost jobs. I got divorced, and all these challenges will come. And even the pandemic, like Doctor said, it affects all of us. Our lives may never go back to normal again. But if I continue to do the work, I can be okay. Like when I was in addiction, I was surrounded by my loved one, and yet I feel so lonely. I could be a room filled with people and yet feel so lonely. But with the tools that I have today, I'm alone most days. I live alone in this home with my 2 cats, yet I don't feel lonely. So it is such a great gift, and it is so, so worth it. So yes, thank you so much for letting me share.
Ika, honestly, I'm actually lost for words. I heard you 1 year ago when we did the mental health program under the Rotary Club of Klang Valley as well. And that was also on Facebook Live. You inspired me then. And today all the more. Today all the more. God bless you, my dear. And those who are hearing you are sending you so many virtual hugs, and all their blessings are with you. All their blessings are with you. Thank you so much for sharing with us. And what I really like about what I picked up particularly from your sharing just now was writing a gratitude list. Now, many of us along the way in our lives, we forget the things that do good for us. We forget the good times. While we say life is short, life is always beautiful, provided we appreciate the good times and the gratitudes that we have had to face in our lives. Thank you so much, Ika. Thank you. We'll come back to questions. I'm sure there'll be some questions. Some of the questions you have already answered with your sharing. We will move on now to our next speaker, Miss Sagita Paramalingam. Miss Sagita Paramalingam struggled with addiction for 14 years. She is a bachelor's degree graduate in psychology and communications. She's also a certified recovery support coach and currently working as a teacher network manager in Science of Life Studies, also known as SOLS, S-O-L-S. Ms. Sagita, please share with us your journey in coping with mental well-being issues and the resilience aspect of it. All yours, Ms. Sagita.
Thank you, Arjun. Thank you, Rotary, for having me here today. So my name is Sagita and I struggled with addiction for 14 years of my life. I still struggle with anxiety. So if my voice shakes, you know why. It's a struggle, but we have to go into the deep end. I would like to start by saying that addiction is not selective. It can happen to anyone across the board. Any socio-economic background, any ethnicity, any gender, age, anybody across the board. Why? I'll tell you why, because I come, much like Ika, I come from a very high achieving family. They were all medical professionals. We had a big house, we had the status, you know, all of those things externally that you could look for in a family. But behind the scenes, there was so much of abuse, domestic violence mainly. So there was a lot of screaming, shouting, blood, and whatnot behind the scenes. Also coming from an Indian background, I could confidently say, most of my family members who are educated excessively drink alcohol, and it's normalized in my family because of the education background, and it's minimized. So as a child, I grew up watching a lot of violence. And at that point, you know, in my life, I was thinking, I don't know what's going on. All I know is I love my father, I love my mother, I love my brother, I love my sister. That's all I knew because I was a child. So I could not decipher what was going on in the household. And when I was 8, my parents divorced. That time the Domestic Violence Act came about in Malaysia, and my mother won custody of all of us. At that same time, my father kidnapped me from school. So he kidnapped me from school, and again, as a child, I thought, you know, okay, I don't have to go to school. I can see my father. Yay, this is happiness. But behind the scenes, the cops were called. My mom it was chaos. She didn't know where I was. The principal called my mom and said I got taken from school and all of those things. So at that point, like I said, you know, I couldn't understand what was going on. All I knew was, like a child, you know, you love your parents, you love your siblings, that's all. So slowly as I grew older, I started putting the pieces together, you know, rationalizing my traumas, you know, making sense out of it. So when I was 7 to 14 years old, I played competitive squash. So there was no time. It was my main coping mechanism. And there was no time to think about any negative thoughts because there was tuition, there was school, there was squash training, there was tournaments and all of those things. And then I missed a lot of school because I was always going for tournaments, right? And my mom said, no, studies is more important. Every Asian household will say this, studies is more important. So I put squash in the back burner. And at that point of time, when I was 15, my social life accelerated. I started partying, I started drinking, I started smoking cigarettes, marijuana, weed. And to me, you know, I was at the peak of my teenage years, 15 years old, trying to find my identity, trying to find my social fitting, you know, finding group of friends. Plus, I had this baggage of trauma that I was carrying and didn't know how to make sense out of it, how to process it. And I found alcohol and drugs. And I was like, wow, what is this amazing thing that makes me numb my emotions and makes me not think about anything in the world. Plus, I was heavy, on the heavier side for most of my life. So being 15, being chubby and being Indian, dark skin, you know, when I drank, I had liquid confidence. I could dance on bar tops, I could socialize and everything like that. You know, and this went on till I was 19. When I was 19, I went on to harder drugs. I started with ecstasy, ketamine. I started going to KTVs. I started university at that point as well. And as you can imagine, because of my lifestyle, I was failing and barely scraping through certain subjects. You know, I failed nearly 2.5 years of my university in the beginning. And just a few years after that, my dad passed away. So my dad passed away from brain tumor. And I was taking him back and forth from Malacca to KL for his chemo, his radio and all that. And he passed away. And 8 months right after that, my best friend passed away tragically from a plane crash. So during that period was trauma after trauma, and I developed panic attacks. I couldn't concentrate in class. I used to go to class and feel like seizures going through my brains. And I told my mom, I said, you know, something is going on with me. And she said, go get an MRI done and whatnot. Doctor said, nothing is wrong with you physically at all. It was all psychological. And it wasn't your usual, shortness of breath and all that. It was literally like electric shocks through, like when I'm concentrating and feeling like that, you know. And at that point, I was just questioning myself. I was just like, why me? Hit after hit after hit after hit. When will this stop? You know, it's like trauma after trauma after trauma, and I don't even know how to process these emotions. And my mom being a single mom, even coming from a background of all doctors, I didn't go for therapy at all. Therapy was not suggested. It wasn't spoken about at all in my household. It wasn't a common thing. And so I decided at that point of time, I said, okay, you know what, I'm gonna reduce my ecstasy, my hard drugs, but I still continued drinking because to me, I grew up in a household where alcohol was normalized. So I didn't think I had a problem. I was like, everyone drinks, you know, I can just continue drinking. So I used alcohol still as a coping mechanism. Until I was 28 years old, 2017. So in that process, I went through ups and downs of cocktailing different substances. I was even going for my presentations in university, taking Aramin 5, street drug known as Happy 5, just to help me with my anxiety. Sometimes I would just down a can of beer and go for my presentation, you know, just to kill the nerves and all of those things. And I graduated with my double degree and I started work. So I went into, my first job was in Women's Aid Organization. I did fundraising for them. So it's a NGO and it was fine in the beginning. Later on, the work pressure added up. Stress came about. I was in a very toxic relationship as well that I just got out of. That was the end of 2017. And then I said, I can't deal with this. So what I did was going to what I always knew best, but I moved on to something harder because alcohol didn't work anymore. I had all this extra pressure. I was using alcohol and all these side substances as well. So I moved on to methamphetamine. So I was using methamphetamine and alcohol really heavily at that point. And in January 2018, I went to work. I was high. It was a post few days not sleeping. Methamphetamine makes you stay awake for many days in a row. So that lack of sleep, and because I was an alcoholic, I used to drink beer all the time. I never used to drink water. So I was dehydrated. I went to work. During my lunch break, I was carrying the soup spoon and it was shaking like that, and I collapsed at work. So my colleagues actually took me to KPJ Damansara, and I was hospitalized for 8 days. And from exhaustion, from dehydration. And that time my mom found out that I was using meth. And of course she was devastated. She was like, why, Sagu, why, you know? And I told her the usual thing that anybody who's addicted would tell when your parents, it was just a one-off thing, ma. It was just a one-off thing. After this, I won't do it again and all that. And I lived alone in KL. So as soon as she took the flight back from KL to Penang, and I got discharged from the hospital, the first thing I did was call up my dealer, get more meth, you know, and I continued to use. And this went on because I didn't know how to stop. I didn't know how to stop by myself, you know, and it got to a point where I was so dependent on it. I went from 0 to 100 really quickly. By April, I hit rock bottom. In April, I lost my job. I made a major blunder at work. At that point, I was already not on good terms with my mom. I developed paranoid thoughts. My anxiety was through the roof, and I didn't feel anything anymore. You know, I was at that point where anything happens to me, I don't care, you know. And my mom, I didn't care at all about anybody except my high. She met an accident. She called me up. I shouted at her for spoiling my high. That was how bad it was. And during that one whole month, which I was jobless, of course, the frequency of my use increased. My sanity was nearly out of the window. And one day I just called up my mom in May. That is a month later, in May 2018, I called up my mom. I said, I don't know who I'm becoming anymore. I need help. Can you help me? And she, at that point of time, even though we were on such bad terms, she didn't judge. She didn't shame me. She didn't, she was the biggest support. I didn't expect a reaction like that, you know, because, and it took me so long to reach out for help. But she straight away made calls, and she booked me into a rehab in Sabah. At that point, I exactly what Ika said, you know, I thought to myself, if I don't actually do something about this, I will lose my sanity entirely, or I will meet in an accident or just die somewhere. So that was the point of when I asked for help. When I was in rehab, that's the first time I actually saw a psychiatrist. And the psychiatrist diagnosed me with social anxiety disorder, bipolar 2 disorder, and substance use disorder. And all these years, he was saying that I was coping with my disorders by myself through my use because of the drug of choice that I was using, upper and a downer, alcohol and meth. And but that at that point, my 6-month treatment in rehab was my healing, was my turning point. And that was the time, I mean, what the first month was withdrawals, it was crucial pain. And I was on medication for the 6 months I was in treatment as well. But when I say healing, I started learning things about myself that I thought I wanted to be, but in recovery, I realized that that is not the same person that I want to be. I found out new things about myself, what made me happy, what made me tick, a lot of things about myself, learning to love myself again. So in that process, I started exercising, eating healthy. I started journaling every single day just to see my thought processes change. From my book 1 to book 2 to book 3, I could actually see how my thought processes changed through the months. It was a self-reflective tool. And when I started those things, I actually started tapering off my medication as well, because I started incorporating this new coping mechanism. And the one thing that kept me on this journey strong was that I kept on reminding myself of the same situation I was when I made that call to my mom. I never want to go back to that same thought, same feeling ever again. So I told myself I would do whatever it took to get myself not back to that situation, however uncomfortable it was. And it was uncomfortable. It was hard. Unlearning things that you did for the past 15 years of your life to survive. It was tough. My paranoid thoughts only went away after 3 months, even in being abstinent. After 3 months only went away. And I started doing, after my 6 months treatment, I did my recovery coaching certification and training as well. So after that, I worked in a rehab as well for a year, helping others struggling with addiction as well. Dr. Dixon, can you pull out the picture? Just to show you how my face had no color because of days of not sleeping. My eyes were all black, and it was like I was like a walking zombie in my addiction. And I would say my first year was all about learning to love myself again, because I did a lot of things in my addiction that I am not proud of, and my dignity was at stake as well. My second year of recovery was exposing myself socially, because my whole family drank, my friends all drink, and I'm an alcoholic, and I'm the only one in recovery, not them. So I had to expose myself to the same places and whatnot to see my triggers and all of those things, and learn how to cope with it. And now in my third year is career development, building my career. And I'm actually, first time in my life, I'm in a healthy relationship. So I just want to say that recovery is a process. It's not a fast process. It's a process that takes time. Like myself, building up from rock bottom is not easy. First year, second year, even though it's something where I think Ika mentioned earlier, you come out of rehab doesn't mean you're recovered, all is well, you can go and expose yourself straight away to all the things that triggered you. You have to slowly learn and unlearn behaviors. But I would say through all that discomfort, recovery is possible, and the freedom from it is priceless. I can say right now, even 10 bad days in sobriety is better than 1 day in addiction. Today, I'm 3 years, 5 months sober, still a work in progress. I'm not fully recovered yet, but I think if I didn't reach out on May 5th, 2018, I don't think I'll be sitting here speaking to all of you today. And if you are struggling, or you know of somebody struggling, please reach out, because it might just save your life like it did mine. Thank you so much.
My God, Sagita, I can't imagine for a moment, the life you would have had. And here many of us think that we are going through the worst times in our lives and thinking that's the end of the world for us. And you have battled this, went through rehab, and you realized at the end of the day how much you love yourself, right? And I like it because the key words I captured from what you shared with us is freedom from recovery on mental health issues is simply priceless. You are absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And I really, we take our hats off. I'll speak for the participants of the audience here today. We take our hats off to how both you and Ika have battled your issues and come out stronger, and today are living examples for others to follow. Thank you. Thank you so much for your sharing.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And yes, I have a question which we have received from the floor, and I'll post this to the panel. I think Dr. Shaila first. The question posed was, if an individual loses control or is overstressed, can resilience solve the problem? Dr. Shaila?
Yeah, as I spoke about earlier, stress
Yes.
doesn't come sometimes in drips. It comes in, it can come like an avalanche, right? Things can happen one after another, as you heard from Eka and Sangeeta's accounts. But as they said, they hit rock bottom, and the thing that taking their, summarizing their journey was they hit rock bottom, but somewhere in them, they realized that they couldn't go on the way they were. So first thing is that realization that, there's no way but up. And secondly, once you come to that realization, is then reaching out and finding some resources to work with your internal resources to then try and see how you can recover. And that's a process in and of itself. So yes, multiple stress issues, multiple events can cause a lot of problems in terms of feeling overwhelmed, despair, distress. But it can, with the right amount of interventions, both on yourself and from external sources, help you get out of it.
Thank you. I hope that answers the question posted earlier. Now, the next question here is, what are the triggers that turn existential hopelessness and despair into hope to enable one to overcome the issues? Would anyone like to take that question? Let me look at it again. You're right, life is complex. Life is a complex journey. What are the triggers that turn? I'm not very sure how this question is posed. Perhaps you could rephrase that question. Moy, from Moy, you can rephrase that question, then we can take it up. In the meantime, we also have another question. Now, and perhaps this question, Ika and Sagita can also share your views on this, because you have gone through these experiences. Now,
maybe let me just elaborate on my question.
Yes.
See, at the two cases we've heard, it was like a hopeless situation. They were in despair,
Yes.
And they really felt hopeless, But something, something triggered, something change, to give a glimmer of hope, that started the recovery
Right.
process. Otherwise, it wouldn't have even started. Yeah, that's my question.
Yes.
What were the triggers? Yeah.
Yes, the good thing is that I think both our panel speakers who shared their experiences realize the need. They recognize the need for help. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think the most important thing is that acceptance. You got to recognize the need for help, and once you recognize the need for help, you approach the right people for help. If not, speak to somebody who can guide you in that direction. Correct me if I'm wrong. And I think with that, it becomes easier on the individual to find a way to solve the issue. None of us escape this issue. We all know it. Some of us live in denial, but we all know it. It's there. We just have to recognize it and accept it. Yeah. Now, one thing troubles me is that I notice that whenever it comes to mental health issues, many people are ready to give their free advices. They're very free and easy with their advice. Oh, you must do this, you must do that. More often than not, these individuals don't have any knowledge on how to address this issue. Is there any, what are the key words, what are the key statements we should avoid? Maybe all three of you all can give us, all the three speakers here today can give us your views on this. What are the kind of words or statements that we should avoid when we are trying to help somebody in addressing these mental health issues? Perhaps Sagita, would you like to start?
Yeah, I think experiences that I had when I explain something that I'm going through, for example, a person would say, oh, just think positively, it's okay, it's fine, things like that. Statements like that can really kind of invalidate somebody's feelings, at that point. So I think that is something to avoid, especially when a person is trying to express how they feel or where they're coming from at that point. So I think like what Saila said earlier in her sharing is that sometimes you just want somebody to listen, somebody to just be there as support, not to solve your problems for you or tell you how to feel or think, because you already have racing thoughts, you have all these emotions going on, and it's very overwhelming at that point. Yeah.
Right. Ika, what are your thoughts, Ika?
Yeah, I completely agree with Sangeeta 100%. Like people always tend to say like snap out of it, or think positive, or why you're so blessed with so many things, why you're still unhappy. But again, going back to what Dr. said earlier, sometimes we just want someone to listen. We're not looking for any suggestions or advice. Yeah, just being there. Yeah, and the thing is, sometimes people used to tell me to like snap out of it, right? I mean, I would if I could. Nobody wants to live like this. Nobody wants to be anxious and depressed all the time. I would if I could. So yeah.
Dr. Shaila, from your clinical experiences, what do you think we should avoid in situations like this?
The thing is to remember not to give prescriptions because you are not an expert.
Right.
Even experts will hesitate before coming to any conclusions based on what someone is telling them, because there's a whole lot of evaluative processes involved. And just because something worked for you or someone you know doesn't mean it's going to work for the person who's talking to you. So that's why I'm saying every individual is unique. You don't know their backstory. You don't know what brought them to this point. You don't have any information on any of that to give any prescriptions. So the best thing is to just, say, I'm here for you. And if there's anything I can do, let me know. And this must be so hard. What you're going through right now must be so hard. But I'm so glad that you're saying this to me and you can come to me and talk to me about this. And if you will allow me, let me see if there's something that I can find out that may be helpful for you. And that way you are present, you are available, you're trying to respond, and you're not giving any judgments or prescriptions.
Exactly, right. Very true, very true. The reason I asked is also because 25 years I had mental health episodes as well. It took me about 6 months to fight it through. And, you know, everyone used to tell me, anyone I spoke to, my friends and all, and when they tell me, you got everything going for you. Your life is doing good. You got a lovely wife. You got a lovely daughter. You got a lovely home. What is it on earth that is bothering you? Now, I wish if I had known the answer, if I could have come out of it with just a simple answer, that would be great. But it's never like that. It's a journey. It's a journey we must all understand, accept, and then move on with it. And your sharing is absolutely correct there, because Ika, when you said, I would if I could, if it was that easy, I would. Exactly. Exactly. And Dr. Shaila, you pointed this out earlier as well. Not all is lost. This is just a temporary journey. This too will pass. Yeah. So there's always hope there. There's always hope there. And I always say, that while we say life is short, it is also very, very beautiful. And it will really be an injustice to make this beautiful life even shorter if we don't do anything to build or improve the life we love so much. We love ourselves so much, only then we can love our dear ones. Otherwise, we are no good around. We are no good to anybody. We are no good to ourselves. Yeah. So any other questions from the floor? Did I miss anything? And I particularly also, resilience, I believe we are talking about mental health issues today, resilience in terms of mental health. But I think that would apply not only in terms of mental health, isn't it? It should apply in our everyday life as well. Don't you think so? Give me your thoughts on it, Dr. Shaila.
Oh,
it should
definitely.
apply in our everyday lives as well, isn't it?
It's a holistic way to live. And to do that, as you heard from the speaker, is finding things to be grateful about every day, even the smallest of things.
Yes.
Very often we expect gratitude to be wrapped around big things, like when we get a job or when we get an award. But just being able to breathe and to have our functional limbs and health, that's a huge blessing. To be able to get out of bed and to be able to go to work and to be able to provide, that's in itself a huge blessing, because if anything this pandemic has shown us is it's a blessing to just be okay.
Yes, absolutely. I totally agree with you. Do we have any more questions?
Hi, PP Arjun. We are still tracking the questions, but
I do have one. Can I ask?
Yes, please.
Okay. Now, exactly a year ago, Rotary Club Klang Valley kicked off the mental health initiative, thanks to CP Dr. Raj, Rotarian Shanti, President Mohan, yourself, Arjun. It was a very interesting session. And my question is, in the last 15 months, there's a lot of impact due to the pandemic at home. What would be, and now, of course, we are starting the recovery right now, right? It's opening up, people are getting vaccinated. I just want to understand, what are those lessons that we have learned that we need to make sure that we keep it as part of the resilience as we move forward, from your perspective?
Your question is directed to any particular speaker?
Maybe Prof. Shaila, maybe she can give us a perspective. And then Eka was with me in the session a year ago.
Yes.
Maybe her perspective, and Sagita as well. Just because sometimes you are seeing, sometimes you are part of it, and we don't know. So when you are part of a system which is protective, you're taken care. Sometimes you don't know whether you're protected or not. You are in an environment where you're facing the challenges. And this applies to people who work or at work, people who are at home, you know, so many dynamics are around that. So I'm asking from that perspective.
Sorry, could you just repeat the question again?
Okay.
I want to make sure that I'm
So my question is, in the last 15 months, we have been closed up and staying at home. It has accelerated a lot of pressure at home and as well as at work, right? So if you were to say, moving forward, we learned something in the last 15 months that we need to keep close to our heart as part of our recovery, or maybe as part of our resilience, the experience of resilience. What would that takeaway be or knowledge be that we need to keep in mind?
But I think there's a lot to this, and I think everyone will have their own unique way of perceiving what the last 18 months or so has been like. But I think a lot of what I'm hearing from a lot of people is just the genuine appreciation for love, you know, the love of their family, the support of people around them, for being able to get through each day in isolation, finding ways and means to help themselves, you know, to comfort themselves, to soothe themselves, and realizing that at the end of the day, we were in a situation that we were so helpless, you know, because we honestly didn't know what hit us, you know, what this is all going to be about. Were we all going to die? You know, what's going to end the fine? And now, looking back, having come through 3/4 of the way, we can say that we made it through, which shows that we are all resilient. And that's what I'm saying. There's nothing ordinary about it. But then how do you want to take the lessons you have learned and apply it to your life as you move forward, so it doesn't become a memory or something that you did before? And as I mentioned before, the thing is gratitude and appreciation and looking forward, having something to look forward to, and maybe having a belief in something higher than yourself, if that is something that appeals to you. Because that is, you know, whatever anchors you to your sense of inner wisdom, that is what's going to help you to gain that perspective, I feel. But of course, you know, that's my personal opinion. Others may have their own opinions on this, but that is what I've come through with this, just a sheer sense of gratitude.
Okay, does that answer your question, Anthony?
Absolutely, thank you. And I think it really helps give me a perspective around this. If I can ask a follow-up question, Arjun, is it okay?
Yes, please.
Okay. So there are friends or colleagues or people that I know have shared some things with me. So it is probably at the height of all the challenges with the pandemic. They were not vaccinated. And of course, now they are in different stages of vaccination. So the questions were in line of, if I go outside, I fear of dying due to the pandemic. If I stay inside, I fear of dying due to stress and other challenges. Right? So that, and I can't balance this pressure, you know, those kind of perspectives that I hear. So I'm part of an organization where, you know, at work, people come and discuss a lot of things. So I just wanted to share that with you and maybe hear some comments or thoughts on it. Thank you.
I think from what I'm hearing you say is the overwhelming fear that they have. Fear seems to be a really immobilizing factor in their life, because it's a question, if I go, I have fear. If I stay, I have fear. And these kind of situations, the best thing I can advise is to reach out to someone to talk to, like a therapist, because those fears need to be processed, and there are interventions that can be utilized. But it's important to talk about the fear, because the worst thing about fear is it grows in silence. But when you talk about your fears, you share your fears, you're able to have this opportunity, a space to process it. That goes a long way to dissipate some of it. So, my advice is to reach out and talk to somebody whom you feel will be able to, be that sounding board for you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. We had one more question, which I think Dr. Shaila has also touched on, and so did Ika earlier. The question is, when someone hits rock bottom, would you advocate reaching out to a higher power, to God, for help? Perhaps, Ika, you can just share your thoughts on that. I believe you touched on it as well.
Yeah, the spiritual way is definitely the one that I would choose. Like, it has worked for me, it has worked wonders for me, but doesn't mean that everyone has to go that way. Yeah, definitely for me is that way, because in the 12 steps, it just says that only God can save you. Like step 1, I can't. Step 2, He can, and step 3, I have to turn it over to Him. So yeah, and the beauty about the 12-step fellowship is you're not forced to to believe in a particular God.
Right.
They don't even use the word God in there, that fellowship. They use the word higher power. So it's a God of your understanding. So it could be nature, it could be the group, it could be the higher power of your own understanding.
Okay.
So for me, that has helped, yes.
That's very good, because that also solves the problem about atheists having issues like this. And if atheists have to refer to a higher power, then they can't refer to the gods, but they refer to a group, their friends, all these fellowship groups. So there is an avenue for everybody. Yeah. Okay. Any more questions before we?
I think there was a question for me in the chat group by LQ.
Okay. Can I take a look at that?
Yeah. LQ, I hope I got your name correctly. Do you see it?
Sorry, I missed it.
I have the question. I think if you don't mind, it's...
yes, please. Yes, Anthony, please.
May I know how you get out from your anxiety? Is that correct, Eka?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead, Eka.
Yeah, thank you so much, LQ, for your question. The thing is, like I shared earlier, initial stage, I needed professional help. I needed some guidance, because again, I didn't have the answers for so many years. I tried to do it on my own and I failed miserably. So I needed to do something different. So, and how do I get out of it? The thing is, it never leaves us. Like Sangeeta was sharing earlier. I mean, I'm still anxious. Before this session, I was still shaking. But when I seek professional help, they will give me tools to manage. So it's about managing. So I hope this answer helps.
Absolutely.
And feel free to reach out. My first consultation is free. Feel free to reach out anytime.
Yeah, that's very good.
Or
exactly. We always need someone to reach out to, We'll just take one last question. What can be done if the father is the one who's causing the abuse on the children? That was the last question that was posed there. Did I miss anything? Okay.
That's correct, Ajay.
Okay, that was the last question that was posed. What can be done if the father is the one that's causing the abuse on the children?
Can I share my?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Yes, Ika.
Yeah, this is another good question as well. I mean, because before recovery, all I did was just blame everyone for my pain. It was his fault, it was her fault. He did this to me, she did this to me. But in recovery, what they teach us is that to look inward. We can't change others. So one of the things that are very important education that was taught to me was setting boundaries. So we can't change others, but I can change how I react towards them. So if some people are still toxic and they're not healthy for my recovery, it is okay for me to have some distance. It is okay to cut certain people from my life. Because if I don't put my recovery first, I might lose my life. So yeah, that's my take on that question. Thank you.
Okay. I don't think we have any more questions for today. Before I hand over the stage back to our MC, Rotarian Anthony, I'll share a clip of, not a clip, excerpts of what I gathered from this discussion today, this sharing today. I think we all can conclude together, we all agree that whatever problem there is, it can be fixed. Correct? It can be fixed. One just has to be patient with your own self. You just have to be patient with yourself and the problem can be fixed. You just have to reach out to the right people. Help is out there. We just have to get there. So we can fix the problems, anything at all, right? So slowly but surely, along the way of trying to fix the problem, you will build and sustain the resilience to overcome any mental health issue in your everyday life. Not only when you have an issue, but it's a continued process. It's a continuing process throughout your life, every day of your life. If you love yourself enough, you will want to make everything work. If you love yourself enough, which I'm sure we all do, and that's why we are here. We love ourselves, we love our dear ones, our families, and that is why we are all here. Okay? Now, with that, thank you so much for sharing your sessions with us, sharing your experiences, your knowledge. It's been wonderful, and I will now hand the stage back to our MC, Rotarian Anthony Raja.
Thank you, PP Arjun, for moderating this session. You have managed this conversation, a difficult set of discussion and questions with a lot of grace and passion. And I must say that all our speakers, Professor Shala, Eka, and Sagita, have helped us understand this deeper. And also you kind of learn from this to say how we can help others who come across in what we are going through. So thank you very much, PP Arjun, for making this happen. I've been reminded that we have overrun. I think we are passionate. Rotarians are very passionate, you know that. So, but we also have a lot of questions that did come in, and it's truly inspiring to hear the questions that can be responded to as much as we can. And I appreciate everyone's patience for that. Let me now take this opportunity to invite our host and President Mohan Ramakrishnan from Rotary Club Klang Valley to thank our speakers, moderator, and for helping us with this session. President Mohan.
Thank you, Rotarian Anthony. Building and sustaining resilience. I mean, it's such a good time to actually, such a good time to start this topic, to run this topic of conversation. You know, many countries, all of us, we have gone through this pandemic 2 years, almost 2 years. We've gone through the challenges. You know, the stormy clouds are sort of clearing the skies now, but the transition is not going to be overnight. You know, the after effects, the damage it has done to us is still continuing. You know, many have coped, but there are many who are still struggling to cope. All right, there is this battle we all fight, yeah, with finances, family issues, loss of loved ones, education, and so many things. All these inadvertently will affect one's mental health. Yeah, and this is the time. I mean, now that things are getting better out there, this is the time that we start building our resilience, you know, or we're going to be pushed further down. All right. On the one hand, you know, if we are struggling, and if we can admit to the fact that we are struggling, we must reach out for assistance. On the other hand, if you know of people who are struggling, you must reach out for assistance. That is what I'm actually gathering from the talk today. And very rightly so, Dr. Shailaja, succinctly, you have dissected the very nature or the characteristics that we can look out for and how we can build resilience. Of course, we must spread what we have learned today. It's no point sitting here listening and not doing anything about it. We owe a duty to not only ourselves, but to the world at large, to the people around us. So we will save lives. I mean, this is a mechanism to save life. We will save lives. Let us all do that. Ika, you're a brave girl, yeah? To have gone through what you have and coming out to speak about it, that's not easy. And this journey you are taking to educate others and motivate them, that's hats off to you. More importantly, sending the message that it's okay to make mistakes, but it's important to realize it and work on our recovery. You're so positive in your outlook to life, my God. I mean, I wish I'm half positive as you are. I'm not. Whilst, certain times, yeah, I go all out. I'm like so confident. I'm so positive about things. The next day, the next week, I'm like thinking, can I do this? Can I do that? I question myself. Yeah, but look at you, for what you've gone through. It's so positive. I mean, that's amazing. Ika, you're a brave girl, as I say. Sagita, you again, the effect of all the violence that you had actually endured, you've watched since a child. No child deserves that. Yeah, and you have even pointed out, how trauma never leaves you, right? And despite moving through phases of life, you went up to university, you finished, you came out of it, you started working, and it never left you. Okay, it built on you, and that had caused you to take a different path, a different diversion. Yeah. But you came to your senses and accepted that you needed help. Now, how many of us are willing to accept our mistakes? Admission is a tough thing. Why? Because you have ego. Am I right? We have this ego. We are not able to admit to our mistakes, let alone failures or whatever that we have done previously. But you have done that. So, on behalf of the Rotary Club of Klang Valley and District 3300, please accept my appreciation and thanks. God bless us all. We thank everyone who had joined us tonight. Your task, thank you. Your task starts now. All of us who have actually been here listening to this talk, our task will start now. We need to reach out. Someone out there, if not yourself, requires your help. So let us go out and help. God bless you all. Good night.
Thank you. Thank you, President Mohan of Rotary Club Klang Valley. Thank you for your support and guidance in helping us host this session. I think as we are speaking, the recognition certificate of appreciation is now being displayed. I think it's very innovative, and we would like to recognize all our speakers as part of this. All right, so there is a display of the Careline support here for all of your awareness. Please do take a snapshot of this if should you need any information and or to guide anyone with regard to any help that they need. This will be a great place for you to make sure that you're able to share this with everyone. May I also remind for everyone to switch on the camera. We will take a group photo as well as part of this session. Can I request everyone to switch on the camera so that our organizing team can take a group photo as well. On the queue, will Rotary Dixon. 1, 2, 3. Go.
So Mahin, have you captured?
Mahin?
Yes, I have the first screen. Hang on for the second one.
Keep
Hold on, please.
Keep smiling. We don't know which screen you are in.
Yes, he is.
Just keep on smiling.
Yeah, just keep on smiling. Yeah.
We're
So
going through many screens. Please bear with us.
yeah, that's the idea.
Due to the number of attendees.
Okay. The second one. Okay. Done. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Rotary Mahin. Thank you very much, Rotary and Dixon. So again, once on behalf of Rotary Club Klang Valley, President Mohan, CP Dr. Raj, and Rotary District 3300, thank you very much for joining our third Saturday talk. I hope it has been valuable and a wealth of information today that you can take back. And to all our speakers, Prof. dialing in from the US, Eka and Shaila for joining us, and Sagita for joining us and giving us an input today, which has been so valuable and helpful. Once again, thank you from all of us. Have a good night.
Bye. Thank you, Prof. Thank you, Sagita. Eka.
Thank you.